My name's Dale Washburn. I kiddingly tell people that I'm Chris's younger brother, but most people don't believe that. As in Chris's letter, we grew up about 10 miles away from the Dahl Ranch, and there couldn't have been two people much different than David and I. He started cowboying and rodeoing as a young man, and I've never climbed onto a horse that I knew was going to buck, and I'm not going to. David started rodeoing in small rodeos around the state, and as it has been mentioned, had success on the collegiate level. At one time he was the South Dakota state champion, joined PRCA and won a number of rodeos, but that's not why we're talking about him today. It served as a background for him to become probably the premier saddle maker in the saddle bronc style saddles that there is today. It's mentioned that at the last NFR, 10 or 11 of the candidates or of the finalists at the NFR were in David Dahl saddles. 11 of the 12 finalists at the Canadian Championship were in Dahl saddles. In the last few years, in visiting the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame, seeing the quality of people that are already in the hall and seeing those that are candidates, I don't know that we have ever seen an individual who has so thoroughly dominated his craft. I'm very proud to support David Dahl in his entry into the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame, and I ask for your support. I'm very proud of our country kid. Thank you.
My name is Cliff Dahl. I'm one of Dave's younger brothers, and I'm probably more instrumental in how the saddle bronc building business took off than anyone knows. I was living in the Northwest at Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Jesse Smith in Spokane, Washington was building my stirrup leathers. And I asked Jesse to build me a bronc saddle, and he said it would be about 14 to 16 months out. And they didn't want to wait, that's almost 2 rodeo seasons. But we had talked about the fact that Dave had built a bronc saddle for my younger brother, Eugene. So he said, if you can get him to build you the saddle, I'll get you the tree. So Jesse ordered me a tree from a little Indian manufacturing plant at Enterprise, Oregon. It cost me $48. I sent the tree to Dave. He built me a bronc saddle on that tree. And the factory at Enterprise, Oregon was right up Dave's alley because you could thicken the swells, you could tweak the cantle, you could change the bars. And when we were young going to rodeos, Dave would tear his bronc saddle apart every day. Tweaking it here, tweaking it there, and sometimes I didn't think he would have it back together to compete, and sometimes he didn't. He would borrow Dale Jurgensen's or Merville Hall's saddle to suffice. The 3 times that he was champion of the Great Plains region is a accomplishment that still stands today, but you only get 4 tries at it. There was 2 champions before Dave from the state of North Dakota. Joe Chase won it twice, and Sonny Air was the steer wrestling and all-around champion before Dave. I'd like to mention that when Dave went to the college national finals at St. George, Utah in 1967, on that roster was Bobby Berger, Ivan Daines, John Macbeth, Ned Londo, and Marvin Joyce. There's 3 world's champions in that group. There's several NFR average winners. So it wasn't an easy feat. J.C. Bonine told me at a branding at Bud Sperry's Ranch in Trotters, North Dakota, that, you know, I really thought I had that championship won. He said, Dave Dahl drew a horse that I didn't place on. But he said, I made the mistake of telling him that if you're going to win this one, Dahl, you're going to have to spur in front of the cinch. And he won the round on that horse. And if any of you know JC, you don't get smiles or too much out of JC. JC went on to tell me that at that era, this was in the 80s, The only guy that he thought spurred a bucking horse harder than Dave Dahl was Clint Johnson. I met Howard Hunter at a rodeo at Ellensburg, Washington in the early 70s. Howard came up to me and introduced himself and told me that Dave Dahl was his hero. He said Dave and his wife Vicki came to teach school at Pine Ridge, South Dakota when he was in the 8th grade. They left after he was a freshman. He said Dave gave me my first bronc saddle, helped me to get started riding bucking horses, and he always instilled these words into me. Every time he seen me, he would say, "Howard, there's no sense entering without the will to win." But he said the greatest thing that Dave did for me that I will never forget is he said he borrowed his little Volkswagen car to me so that I could take Annie on dates, and that's Howard's wife till he died. Howard said that Dave also, I don't know if any of you know, he was a teacher. When he was teaching school at Pine Ridge, he was teaching math, and he said us little Indian kids would each go up and have him do one of the homework problems. He said he was a little slow at catching on that he was doing our homework for us, but he finally did catch on. And he said he instilled into the Indian kids at Pine Ridge, which is a tough community, that you may as well not enter without the will to win. I'd like to thank the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame for allowing me to speak on Dave's behalf, the Board of Trustees, and ask that you consider nominating Dave to the Cowboy Hall of Fame. I think it's a feat that's long overdue. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Dahl, and I'm one of Dave's younger sisters. And I have the honor of speaking on behalf of our family, asking you to endorse our brother Dave Dahl, whose name is actually David, into the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame. He was born on our family farm, Keene, North Dakota, one of 11 children. And Dave has always been an inspiration and a role model for our family. He's always the first one there to provide guidance, reassurance, or a helping hand to someone in need. Ever the friend of the cowboy and looking out for the cowboy, I have a story to tell you about something that happened recently. Dave was contacted by a FedEx worker in Utah, and there was an unclaimed package that had arrived in Utah. It had been mailed in Nebraska, went on to Iowa, and it happened to contain a Dave Dahl bronc saddle, number 727. And Dave said he looked up and he said, I never expected to make 1,700 plus saddles. So he said, I didn't keep very good records back in those days. But Dave had just gotten a little tech savvy, so he asked if I could help him. So we put a picture of an old bronc saddle up on the Facebook page of Wade Sundell. And Wade Sundell is kind of important to our family. We all really just like him. And I love him because my son's name is Wade. Anyway, within about 3 hours, I had a call from Dave and the saddle was claimed. And the guy that claimed it had borrowed the saddle, and he was from Canada, and he had lost the saddle for at least 2 months. And he said he'd sent it off to be repaired before he returned it to the guy that he borrowed it from. And he said he was sweating bullets because he didn't know how to get the saddle back to the guy, or how to tell the guy that the saddle was missing. So with the help of Dave and his North Dakota sister, the saddle was reunited with the owner, and I can't really tell you the name because the guy was a little embarrassed. And several of Dave's family, myself included, had the honor of being present when Dave was inducted into the Casey Tibbs Hall of Fame in Pierce, South Dakota, last year in June of 2017. And a bronc saddle was made by Dave and donated by Dave and his family, and it was presented to the winner of the saddle bronc riding. And guess who won? Wade Sundell. So we were just very happy. And of course, Wade was riding a Dahl saddle. And the following day, our family had planned to get together prior to leaving, but we were gonna all have a lunch together. But due to a cowboy emergency, dial 911, Dahl bronc saddles, our family reunion, or visit before we left, was canceled till the saddle was fixed and the cowboy was on his way. Now I want you to imagine Dave Dahl attending the 2017 Wrangler National Finals in Las Vegas. He had not been there had never gone, he told me when I talked to him. And he said he's watching the saddle bronc riders compete, and just imagine him knowing he's personally made the saddle, he sat in the saddle to get the right feel, and it had to be just such an honor for him. I imagine the snaps on his shirt were bursting with pride. I know his whole family was very, very proud of him. And Dave Dahl saddles, like we've all said, are recognized throughout the world for their build and reputation. Many world championships have been won on them, and the riders continue to share testimonies of how great a fit and comfort the saddles are. I would ask you to look at some of the magazines. He was just featured in Cowboys and Indians, Rodeo News, and there's several others over on the display. And I would ask that you please vote for Dave Dahl and induct him into the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame. I feel he's very deserving of this award, and this Keene, North Dakota Cowboy, former saddle bronc champion, 1967 National Intercollegiate Rodeo, and renowned saddle maker, is just very, very deserving of the honor. He has never forgotten his North Dakota roots and his love of North Dakota. Thank you on behalf of Dave Dahl's family.